The moment you feel that heat rise in your chest, your mind starts lying to you. It tells you this is urgent, this is personal, this is dangerous. And if you are honest, you have been there so many times that you can predict what comes next. The tight jaw, the fast fingers on the phone, the tone that changes, the silence that punishes, or the smile that pretends you are fine while something inside you is scraping the walls. If you have ever thought, I know better, so why do I still react like this? I get it. Because emotional regulation is not a moral trait. It is not proof that you are mature or broken. It is a skill that depends on your nervous system, your habits, your sleep, your history, and the stories your brain learned to tell in order to keep you safe. Most people are not failing at self-control. They are trying to drive a car while the smoke alarm is screaming in their ear. I want to slow this down and make it real. Emotional regulation is the ability to notice what you feel, tolerate it, and choose what you do next. Not to erase emotion, not to become calm all the time, just to create a small space between the spark and the fire. That space is where your life actually changes. A lot of people think the goal is to never feel overwhelmed, but the real goal is to stay present while you are overwhelmed, to stay in the room with your own body. That is the difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is your nervous system running an old program. Responding is you taking the wheel back, even if your hands are shaking. Your brain is built for survival, not for wisdom. When your brain senses threat, it shifts resources away from the part that thinks long-term. That thinking part is often called the prefrontal cortex, which is just the area that helps you plan, pause, and consider consequences. Under stress, it goes dim. At the same time, the threat system ramps up. People call it the amygdala sometimes, but what matters is the function. It scans for danger and pushes you toward fast action. This is why you can be brilliant in one moment and impulsive in the next. It is not hypocrisy, it is biology. And the threats that trigger you now are often not physical. They are social and emotional. A delayed reply, a certain facial expression, a meeting invite with no context, a partner turning away in bed. Your nervous system treats these like ancient dangers because in human history, being rejected by the group could mean you did not survive. So your body reacts like it is protecting your life, even when the real situation is a text message. I picture it like a guard dog. A good dog protects the house, but a guard dog that was trained in chaos will bark at the wind, bite the mailman, and lunge at shadows. Your emotions are not the enemy. The untrained part is the timing, the intensity, and the target. Here is the first shift that changes everything. Feelings are not commands, they are signals. Anger signals boundary or injustice. Anxiety signals uncertainty and perceived risk. Sadness signals loss and the need to let go. Shame signals fear of disconnection, fear that you will be pushed out of belonging. When you treat a feeling like a command, you obey it. When you treat it like a signal, you can read it. Most people skip the reading because it is uncomfortable. They go straight to action or straight to numbness. Numbness is also an action. It is just slower and quieter. Scrolling, snacking, porn, work, over-explaining, over-joking, over-planning. These are not random habits. They are emotion management strategies that worked at some point. That's why they are so sticky. Operant conditioning is the psychology term for how behaviors get trained by reward and relief. Relief is a powerful reward. If you check your phone when you feel anxious and you get a tiny hit of relief, your brain learns phone equals safety. If you lash out and the other person backs off, your brain learns anger equals control. If you shut down and the conflict ends, your brain learns silence equals protection. None of this means you are bad. It means your brain is doing what brains do. It repeats what reduces pain fast. The problem is the cost. Fast relief often trades away long-term trust, health, and self-respect. So emotional regulation is partly about building a new reward system. You stop rewarding the quick escape. you start rewarding the pause. There is a technique that sounds simple, but it is almost unfairly effective. It is called affect labeling, which means putting feelings into words. When you name what you feel, you reduce its intensity, not because you are pretending, but because naming recruits that thinking part of the brain again. It is like turning a light on in a room where you were panicking in the dark. But you have to name it honestly. Not just, I am stressed. Go closer. I am embarrassed. I am jealous. I feel disrespected. I feel powerless. I feel lonely. I feel cornered. The more precise you are, the less your body has to shout. A lot of emotional storms are really just unnamed feelings fighting to be recognized. I want you to imagine a night where you are lying in bed and your mind is running the same scene on repeat. Something someone said, a mistake you made, a look you cannot decode. Your chest feels tight. Your stomach has that hollow pull. You reach for your phone. Your thumb already knows the path. In that moment, regulation is not about becoming a monk. It is about staying with the sensation for 10 more seconds than you usually do. You notice the urge like a wave. You do not argue with it. You do not obey it. You watch it rise, peak, and shift. Urges are like weather. They feel permanent while they are here, but they move. The skill is called distress tolerance, which means you can feel discomfort without needing to fix it right now. That skill is rare, and it is life-changing. Your body is the doorway. If your body is in panic, your thoughts will follow. So one of the fastest ways to regulate emotion is to regulate physiology. Slow breathing is not a glitch. It is a lever. When you lengthen your exhale, you signal safety to the nervous system. Your heart rate starts to settle. Your muscles soften slightly. Your brain gets a message. Maybe we are not dying. I do not mean perform calm. I mean create conditions for calm to be possible. You can breathe and still feel angry. You can breathe and still feel hurt. The point is not to erase the feeling. The point is to stop the feeling from hijacking your next action. Another shift is understanding the difference between the first emotion and the second emotion. The first emotion is the raw reaction. The second emotion is what you feel about what you feel, like shame about anxiety or anger about sadness. The second emotion often causes more damage than the first. People do not just feel anxious. They feel weak for feeling anxious. They do not just feel sad. They feel disgusted with themselves for feeling sad. That is how a simple human emotion becomes a spiral. This is where self-compassion becomes practical, not sentimental. Self-compassion is not letting yourself off the hook. It is treating your inner experience with basic fairness. You can hold yourself accountable without attacking yourself. When you attack yourself, your threat system activates again. You cannot regulate from a state of self-violence. Cognitive distortions are another big piece. That term just means thinking habits that bend reality under stress. Catastrophizing means you jump to the worst-case scenario. Mind reading means you assume you know what others think. All-or-nothing thinking means you see only success or failure. When you are emotionally flooded, these distortions feel like truth. Regulation means you learn to spot them early, like seeing a familiar scam email in your inbox. You do not have to debate every thought. You just have to recognize the pattern. I use a simple test. Is this thought helping me behave like the person I want to be in the next 5 minutes? If not, I do not need to prove it wrong. I just need to stop feeding it. Attention is food. What you focus on grows. If you keep replaying the insult becomes your whole world. If you keep scanning for rejection, you will find it everywhere. Confirmation bias is the term for that. It means your brain looks for evidence that matches what it already believes. If you believe people leave, you will notice every sign that they might. Your nervous system will call it intuition. Often it is just a well-rehearsed fear. Emotional regulation is also identity. If you secretly see yourself as someone who cannot control emotions, then every slip becomes proof. If you see yourself as someone who practices regulation, then slips become information. Identity is not what you claim, it is what you repeatedly do, especially when no one is watching. There is a moment I want you to recognize. It is the moment right before you send the message you will regret, the moment right before you raise your voice, the moment right before you shut down and disappear. That moment is usually small. It is a microsecond where your body leans forward into the old behavior. Most people miss it because they are already inside the story. So I train myself to look for early cues: heat in the face, pressure behind the eyes, that fast mental narrowing where only one outcome seems possible, that urge to win, to punish, to prove, to escape. When I catch the cue, I treat it like the check engine light, not shame, not panic, information. Then I buy time. Time is the currency of regulation. You do not need a perfect strategy. You need a delay. Delay breaks the chain between trigger and reaction. It interrupts the habit loop. The habit loop is cue, craving, response, reward. If you change the response, you change the loop. Even a small delay changes the brain. It teaches, I can feel this and still choose. Sometimes the most mature thing you can do is do nothing for a moment. Not as avoidance, as choice. You let the emotion move through without turning it into damage. This is where boundaries come in. People confuse regulation with being easy to deal with. Real regulation does not mean you tolerate disrespect. It means you communicate boundaries without losing yourself. Anger can be clean. Clean anger is firm, specific, and timed well. Dirty anger is when old pain drives the car.